You're listening to RealAgriculture.com. Get real, get connected.
All right, I'm joined today by Don McCabe. He's the president of OFA. And Don, of course, big news in the last few weeks is Ontario's commitment to a cap-and-trade system for carbon. What does this mean for agriculture here in the province?
A cap-and-trade system would be a system that would extend across point source polluters, and agriculture is not one of those. A point source polluter are folks that make lime and fertilizer and make hydro and things like that. And the government knows what's going up their stack and how much carbon dioxide there is. And the government's going to come along and say, here's the line. You can no longer cross in the amount of emissions that you put out. And if you're above that line, you've got a problem. If you're below that line, you're sitting good, and you now have whatever amount you're below that line, you've got credits that you could trade with somebody else. On the other side of the coin, if you're above that line, you're now looking to find credits. Now, where does agriculture come into this? It's because agriculture can be a source of credits to this system. Again, we're not a point source polluter. We're a non-point source polluter. But with all the beneficial management practices that we currently employ in our farm and new technologies that are coming down, we're finding ways to become more efficient, more in tune with what we do and how we do it to save money as we go. And the reality is that there are protocols then that would help identify for farmers areas where they can make improvements on their farm, whether it's feeding in beef and dairy animals to get more pounds of milk, or whether it's no-till, or whether it's bioproducts, or whether it's fertilizer management. These are all areas where carbon credits could become a opportunity that could be captured by the farm, then aggregated with others to become a source for a new market. And that carbon market is what a cap-and-trade system makes happen, and it will require the liquidity of having a lot of volume. And that's where agriculture comes in then to help offset the costs that are going to happen underneath of this system, because you're asking companies to make changes or whatever. If we'd gone with a carbon tax, agriculture would only have to pay. In this opportunity, agriculture has an opportunity to be voluntarily engaged.
So now, farmers, of course, though, also buy copious amounts of fuel and fertilizer. Will the price of these inputs go up based on a cap-and-trade system?
It's extremely possible because the reality is that pricing carbon is in economic terms, one of those externalities that's never been priced before. And if folks in those businesses have an opportunity to pass on a cost, I'm expecting they will. The reality is that everything always is an issue of competitiveness. Things, costs may or may not go up. But in preparation for that, that's why the OFA said if they're going to put a price on carbon, what's the best way for it to be handled? And the best way for it to be handled for agriculture is a cap-and-trade system, because in a carbon tax, you have no way of getting out of that. You pay it. And for example, a greenhouse grower in BC, where there is a carbon tax, on average has $12,000 an acre more in heating costs because of a carbon tax. You can't get rid of that. In Alberta, the largest provider of credits to that system when it started was no-till agriculture. That meant farmers were getting a check.
Now, so ultimately there will be, as you said, the cost passed on to users or purchasers, which would be farmers. Do you feel, though, there will be an opportunity for all farmers of all, whether they're beef, dairy, cash croppers, will all farmers be able to cash in on the credit side to balance those extra costs?
It'll entirely depend on making sure that the system is as broad and as flexible as possible. In theory, definitively yes, because again, I'd steer people towards Alberta, where protocols have been developed in many various areas for people to take a look at opportunities to employ those on their operations. And this is going to be like any other commodity that comes off the farm. There's ways of doing business, and you capture that, and you get rewarded for it. But right now, I cannot say definitively what's in the system because the system is yet to be defined.
All right, and so that's my last question. Obviously, this is an evolving sort of system, and the rules, we don't know them yet. Where can farmers go for more information?
Well, at this particular juncture, you can essentially do a Google search and put in cap and trade. But bottom line, I highly recommend having take a look at what Alberta's up to, because that system is the one that I know of that is the most friendly to agriculture. And in Alberta, there is a corporation called the Climate Change Emissions Management Corporation, and they run that system out there. And the way that an Alberta company is able to run its business is to find credits internally to its own business, to trade with other like-minded businesses, to pay the government a $15 a ton fee to meet their compliance, or to find credits from the outside, and that means agriculture comes to play. And with that $15 a ton fund, the reason I raise that is because that's created a whole lot of research dollars for opportunities for agriculture and forestry to move their businesses along and look at new innovations, and therefore their carbon credits that can be traded. So Alberta is a great system to look at. We're tied in with Quebec and California. California has just started to look a little bit at this issue of getting some agricultural protocols in place, so there's not much use in worrying about a race protocol, for example, for Ontario. But the reality becomes that the principles behind that are what we have to be aware of and how we work these things through. So this is a work in progress. The government's announced the principle, and now that we've got the principle, we've got to work on the details, and that will happen here over the next few months to get a more firm system in place.
All right, Don McCabe of OFA, thank you so much.
Thank you.